Our next segment is with LIM Geomatics. They specialize in geographical mapping services. They are a software company, and they, like so many businesses, had to shut down completely. Well, we find out from President Kevin Lim how they managed to stay afloat during these unprecedented times.
I started LIM Geomatics in 2006 when I was finishing my PhD at Queen's. So I spent about 12 years in university, I should say. But as a kid, I grew up, I was that kid delivering the newspaper, 3 hours after each day. So if I wanted to buy something, you had to make your own money. So always had a sense of innovating, trying to do things quicker, not the guy who likes to repeat doing things. LIM Geomatics builds geospatial software and data for the forest industry. Specifically, we're targeting forestry companies to get better insight into how their operations are going. So it comes down to being efficient and reducing costs wherever possible. So we build software that lets them monitor their heavy equipment in the field, lets them do various types of planning activities using desktop software or even smartphone applications. So it's really bringing that digital transformation to a sector that historically has maybe been a little slower to adapt some of these newer technologies. LIM Geomatics is a pure technology company. So while we may be able to speak the language, the jargon of foresters, because we have that going on 15 years of domain expertise, by all definitions, we deal with technology. Our staff are computer scientists, software engineers, GIS analysts and whatnot. So really the opportunity here was for us to create those relationships with forestry companies that otherwise, it's a sector that typically is maybe a little bit more leery to embrace new technology. They're as advanced as some of the mills are and whatnot, you still have folks in some jurisdictions that have flip phones, compass paper. Not to say there's anything bad. If it works, it works. But at the end of the day, when a younger workforce especially is coming through the ranks equipped with a smartphone in their pocket, it largely sets an expectation in terms of what should or could be done today. So very much with this pandemic that's been ongoing, it's forced a lot of these companies to realize some of the things they thought were never possible. They're forced in that position to realize it's possible whether they like it or not. So when the pandemic hit, if you will, depending on which date you want to use, it was actually kind of funny. We had an American customer in this boardroom right here that came up for 2 days of meetings, and literally as we were having this meeting, we were constantly watching the news because we were worried about the American side or even the Canadian side closing the border. So that was the first, if you will, kind of taste of the pandemic coming, but it was early. Not a lot of people knew what was happening. In our particular case with forestry, it was almost like an overnight stop in terms of the funding well, if you will, just ran dry instantaneously. Talking with a lot of our tier one clients, it wasn't necessarily that they were in financial distress, as opposed to everybody was taking that pattern of, I don't know what's happening, let's shore up our balance sheets, let's hoard our cash, let's ride this through into the fall winter time frame. Definitely we've been negatively impacted, revenue wise, probably 50% drop for sure. So the Canadian government stepping up to the plate has helped us maybe avoid making some of those hard decisions around workforce. But certainly now, as we look at being in that September timeframe, we're in that sweet spot where companies are reassessing their budgets, planning for the future. And if anything, that dam of demand is starting to open up, and we're starting to feel that the future is looking a bit more positive than maybe it was yesterday. So think about the impacts personally on entrepreneurs and business owners. It hasn't been an easy ride. There's that saying that entrepreneurship's not for everyone, and I think the pandemic is a great example to show that you got the ups, the highs, and you got the lows, and the pandemic's definitely the lows. So certainly it's nerve-wracking when you think we've got 20 people and their families at risk, right? Not alone, yet alone your own family per se. So definitely there's sleepless nights. As I said, LIM Geomatics as a whole, we've been financially stable, we've been profitable from day one. Not to say we're risk averse, but we were fortunate that we at least had a little bit of a war chest to position ourselves to ride this out. But I think on the personal side is, as I think about other CEOs that I interact with, I know companies that are bankrupt. And hundreds of people that no longer have jobs. And so when you think about that, I feel blessed that LIM Geomatics is able to do what it's able to do and provide for its people. But at the same time, there's a lot of people hurting out there. So if I was to say there weren't some sleepless nights, I'd be lying. As an owner, as a leader, part of your job is not to instill panic in your workforce. So it's not something you can share with people and go, oh my God, things are on fire, like run for the high hills. So you need to kind of dial it back a little bit and focus on what you can control. And again, fall back on your strategy, things that's gotten you through the tough times, and just execute at the end of the day, and maybe roll the die a little bit here to see what happens.